Welcome to Season 9 of The Catholic View for Women. So good to be back with you. I'm Teresa Tomeo, along with my co-host Elena Rodriguez and Janet Morana. And ladies, here we are. Can you believe it's season number 9 already?
Yeah.
It's here.
It's here. And you know, I feel truly blessed, and we have to thank our viewers, really, who tune in and email us and give us the ideas for these programs. You know, we created this show basically to reach out to help women like ourselves, you know, who always have to be strengthened in our faith and have so many questions. But I know we're so encouraged by their response to us, you know, in their emails.
We definitely are. We have to thank them for our prayer, for their prayers for us,
exactly,
and for the success of the show, and for the prayers that we all say for all of the viewers, because we do encourage one another, and that's very
Pray
important.
for each other.
Pray for each other.
Well, also to the network, also for adopting this show and making it a part of their programming, because more and more, and I was talking about this with our spiritual advisor, Father Frank Pavone, more and more wherever I go, and I know you're traveling a lot more with your new role in marketing on the road, people are saying we love the view, we love the Catholic
Exactly.
View.
I get the same response.
Yeah.
Of course, they also recognize my voice.
Mine too.
Even before they see me, they turn, oh, it must be Janet. And then I always hear about the view. And actually, you know, I was just over in Rome, and even over in Rome, I hear people coming up to me and say, we see you on the view, we see you on the view. So thank you,
Yes.
viewers, for you know, for tuning in and spreading the word.
Yes, and
It's
please
because of
continue
them.
to support EWTN, and as Mother Angelica always said, and Father Mitch still says, and other personalities, including myself on radio every morning, keep us between your gas and electric bill, because we're totally viewer and listener supported.
That's right.
All right, so we're starting out, and I'm very excited about this, because it ties directly into something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's the Archdiocese of Detroit, where I'm from. And my wonderful Archbishop, Archbishop Vigneron, in Pentecost 2017, on the eve of Pentecost, issued the most amazing pastoral letter called Unleash the Gospel. And it ties in directly with my new book, Beyond Sunday, Becoming a 24/7 Catholic. And I'm really excited about this because it's not just a book, we're looking at it as a movement where we're really trying to do a lot of what Archbishop Vigneron is talking about in Unleash the Gospel. As a matter of fact, he's quoted 7 times from his pastoral letter in this book. And it really is all about bringing our faith into our everyday lives. And that's why people watch this show, hopefully. That's why you're tuning into EWTN, because going to Mass, obviously, it's obligatory. We have to be there every single week, and hopefully we go more than once a week because we're allowed to receive the Eucharist daily. But it's the source and summit of our faith, but if we don't carry that into our everyday life,
Right.
it can lose its
Well, it's very
right?
often the big joke is, you know, when Catholics leave Mass out in the parking lot, they don't act very Christian, you know? And that's what this is about now, is how do we take that experience, that encounter with Jesus in the Eucharist, and then bring it into our daily lives from the moment we step outside the church, you know? It goes forward with us.
It's an act of faith, and it's an act of action, and it's an act of prayer to discern what the Lord is calling you to do every day and how to live out your faith.
Exactly. Well, Teresa, recently we picked out, I think, a nice clip, right?
Yeah, let me set this up for our viewers, because as I said, there is a beautiful Unleash the Gospel pastoral letter. Everybody can find it online, unleashthegospel.org, and we'll have it on our website and also on our study guides, and Janet will give us our tips at the end of the show, as she always does. But this is a pastoral letter to the Archdiocese that was issued after we had a synod throughout the Archdiocese, bringing together people of all different levels of practice. They were different teachers, whether they were in RCIA, whether they were doing some sort of faith formation, whatever it is, they were there discussing what needed to happen in the Archdiocese. And the pastoral letter is a result of that, and also the Archbishop's prayer to really help people connect with God on a daily basis. What I love about this particular clip, and we'll also give you a link to this clip, is that it shows what life is like in the Archdiocese of Detroit. We're very blessed because we have a very active faith community. A lot of people think negatively when they think of Detroit. We have over 300 parishes in the Archdiocese, and it stems all the way up, and I'll do the Michigan thing with my hand. We go all the way up here, okay, to northern Detroit area, all the way basically down here almost to the Ohio border. So we have a huge area that we cover, and there's so much going on, and we are unleashing the gospel and going beyond Sunday. Let's hear what the Archbishop has to say.
This is not just the project of a year. This is the project of a generation.
So excited. So excited I can't think anymore.
I have been looking forward to this happy moment the Mother Church of the Archdiocese of Detroit, I would have the opportunity to express my love for all of you.
We, as the Archdiocese, are totally committed to the new evangelization, and that's what we need to be about. The leaders, the members of the Synod, our diocese, we've listened to the Holy Spirit. I've listened to them, and now I make my determination. The long-range hope is that we're going to have just an incomparable number of beatifications and canonizations of men and women and young people and priests and monks and sisters and everybody from the Archdiocese of Detroit. So many people we won't have enough days for their feast day. This is the work of a lifetime. This is part 2 of the church in the Archdiocese of Detroit. This is one of the reasons we're going to change the coat of arms, is to mark this historic change, this new volume in the history of our church. A very important question to ask oneself as he reads the letter is, what is the Holy Spirit saying to me? The Archbishop in this letter is saying what he heard the Holy Spirit say. What's the Holy Spirit saying to me? I think the Synod is already having an impact on our lives. I think people talk differently. I think the focus that we have, our attitudes are different. It's happening. God's at work.
What I love about that clip is it gives a real sample of what's going on in terms of what it looks like to take your faith beyond Sunday, the various processions through the streets of Detroit. There's a clip there, you may not recognize his face, but we know him, Steve Dawson from St. Paul's Street Evangelization, where they literally are on the streets witnessing, not just in Michigan, but now they're all over the country and all over the world. You saw people with their hands open in prayer. This is what a 24/7 Catholic looks like. Although, for us, when I was growing up, even though I was faithful, I would say in grade school, by the time I got to college, by the end of my freshman year, faith was literally just something I did on Sunday, if that. Embracing it, and we're going to talk about this after the break, really means starting with that encounter with Christ. If you don't have that, none of it's going to make any sense.
Well, you know, Teresa, I can remember, you know, growing up in Brooklyn, May processions were a big, huge event. I mean, not just a small, you know, I went to a May procession last week up in New York at my daughter's parish with my granddaughter, all the little First Communion kids, but they just do it once around inside the church. But oh no, when I grew up in Brooklyn, it was outside. And it was like, at least over 100 kids participated, and you went around the full city block of the parish, and then in for adoration. And it seems like that thing growing up, we had a lot of outward pouring of our faith. But then, of course, like you, I went away from my faith in high school and college, and didn't even go to Mass anymore. And then coming back now as a revert for over 25 years now, you learn that relationship, like they're saying, with Jesus Christ. That's what's so important. And if you don't have that, then you can't go out and become a 24/7 Catholic and bring it into other areas, right?
You cannot overstate the value of a procession. A procession is you walk with the Lord,
right?
And you follow the Eucharist, or you follow a religious image. You're praying along the way. You're singing along the way. You're doing what a Christian does and what a Christian did going back 2,000 years.
But how many people know that?
But we need to rescue
right.
this great value of processions. Now, growing up in Costa Rica, processions were very good. They're huge.
Right.
Anywhere in Latin America. And so you would have the Eucharistic procession from one parish to another. During Holy Week, every day you would have processions, and with different times of day, under the sun, under the weather. And you would think, oh, okay, well, it's Central America. There's no cold, there's no snow. No, sometimes it was under torrential rains, and the people still kept going on. And everybody along the way would decorate their homes and would set up little altars and candles and do their best to bring the faith outward, to show that they, with their home being there, they wanted to honor the passage of the procession. And in our daily lives, our whole procession on earth is a procession in and of itself.
Right.
We start in a pilgrimage. We start in one place, we end in another, hopefully in a better place, and we have grown along the way because we have faced so many challenges that have made us stronger. At first, these challenges in life seem like they are they stop us, and they are something that's not supposed to be in the script, whereas much on the contrary, all these challenges in life make us stronger. Right. When we do World Youth Day, our young people go, and some of them think they're going on a tour, but very quickly they realize,
it's more
and a lot of them realize and take it very seriously from the beginning, but very quickly you realize you're going to be sleeping on the floor, you're going to probably not be able to take a full bath, you're going to be sharing with 30 other folks, sometimes in very hot, very humid conditions. But you're going to be there, you're going to be joyful, and then you see the Holy Father, and it is a pilgrimage. It is World Youth Day is a pilgrimage that has a comparison to Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Resurrection as well.
Yeah. So but those things have to be, I think, explained, and I think maybe in Latin America, because it was such a part of the culture, it was explained more, and the parents knew a little bit more about the history, and we come back, we're going to talk more about that. I think we're doing much better job because we have EWTN, we have all this great apologetics that's out there in understanding our faith, but it starts with really opening ourselves up to that encounter with Christ, and that's how I started going beyond Sunday, and we want the same for you. And just because you may be going beyond Sunday already doesn't mean you can't continue, because the journey is ongoing, because as you said, this is a pilgrimage. More on the Catholic View for Women. Stay tuned. We'll be right back to help you go beyond Sunday and become or be a better 24/7 Catholic. We'll be right back. We're so glad you're joining us on the Catholic View for Women here on EWTN, our 9th season, the first show of our 9th season. I'm Teresa Tomeo, along with my wonderful, stellar co-host, Elena Rodriguez and Janet Morana, and really helping you embrace your faith. That's what we do all across the network, but specifically, we're talking in this episode, what are some great ways you can go beyond Sunday? And if you watch the first half of our show, you may have seen that clip with my Archbishop Vigneron from the Archdiocese of Detroit, which is really enveloping this idea of going beyond Sunday by unleashing the gospel, which is actually the formal title of a beautiful pastoral letter that actually is catching on. There are so many priests coming from around the country and around the world to study the letter. He's doing a teaching on it online at the aodonline.org for the Archdiocese of Detroit. But I want to go to the clip that we were referencing earlier. The bottom line, brothers and sisters, is everything in terms of understanding your faith, really embracing it, has to start with that surrender and to Christ and that encounter with Him. Here's what my Archbishop has to say about that.
You can't share what you don't have. If I haven't accepted the teaching of Christ, the person of Christ, as the one who is the pearl of great price, the one for whom I would be willing to lay down my life, I can't possibly present him to others as inviting them to come and be all-in disciples. There's no part-time discipleship. There's no halfway into this. Christ isn't some kind of ornament that is among other things that makes our life rich. He's the reason we live. And so I have to embrace that good news if I'm going to be a credible witness to this good news.
I love that explanation of encountering Christ. And I've always asked my Archbishop, who's a regular guest on my radio program, why did we get into this situation where we have such an incredibly deep faith? It's so beautiful, the saints and the doctrine and the history and the art and the culture and what we've given to the world. And yet so many Catholics, what, 24% of Catholics, so people who identify as Catholics in the U.S., there's 70 million that identify as Catholic, about 24% of them go to Mass. And among those who are even in church, many of them, and maybe by no fault of their own, don't even know really what they're practicing or why. But let me read this quote, and then I want you both to respond to it. And this really, I think, is a very good explanation. And this is in Unleash the Gospel, by the way, my Archbishop, Alan Vigneron. Over the centuries, as a church became accustomed to existing within almost entirely Christian societies, it became all too easy to lose sight of Christ's mandate. Parishes and dioceses slipped almost imperceptibly into a mode of maintenance rather than mission. Many Catholics came to think of evangelization as a special calling, primarily for priests and religious in the foreign missions. But in the last half-century, even as the Western world has become increasingly secularized and countless people have abandoned the faith into which they were baptized, the Church has been ringing out a call for all Catholics to awaken to their baptismal identity as missionary disciples. All are being summoned to engage in a new evangelization, a renewed proclamation of the good news of Christ to the people of our time. And that's a quote from Archbishop Vigneron, unleashthegospel.org, to check out this letter. What do you think?
Well, one of the things that we need to clarify first is there is a beauty in spreading the gospel, and the gospel is a treasure. But unlike a regular treasure out in the human world, where if you give out too much of it, eventually it runs out, and then you don't have any to give. Unlike that, faith is a treasure in which the more you give out, the more you enrich yourself.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Exactly, very well put. And so, well, how do you give this gift? And where do you find this gift?
Well, you have to first receive it, because if you don't receive it first, you can't give it.
And at the same time, you have to receive it and love it, because you can't live out something that you don't love. Likewise, you can't love something that you don't live out. It goes hand in hand. And how can you tell where to go? How can you tell how to do this? Well, the first step is to put it in prayer and say, Lord, thank you for this day. I'm waking up, and thank you for health. Before your feet hit the ground, and I have many, many days when I don't do this myself, so I have to apply this to myself first and utmost. But what is the Lord asking you to do that day? Right. Or Lord, show me today moments and times in this day where I can actually put my faith to work. And it could be something as simple as smiling at somebody when you're in line to pay at the grocery store, or maybe you're in line to catch the train and somebody asks you for the time. Well, you know, why not give that with a smile? That might be the only smile that person will get that day. Like
but your point of starting out the day, and this is what I tell people, and people say, well, what's the formula? Like there is this perfect formula.
No, there's no formula.
Our Protestant brothers and sisters, and this is not to discredit them, they have this beautiful saying of that personal relationship with Christ. But they have something called the surrender prayer, but it's not just a one-time prayer. We need to surrender ourselves to the Lord every single day. As you said, you get up in the morning, here I am, Lord, I have come to do your will. Be like Our Lady. She says, you know, according to thy word, not my word. But putting God first in your life, and that changes, it reorders your whole sense of being. Janet?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, like very often, and I'm guilty like you, Elena, too. I want to, one time a priest told me this in spiritual direction, that just get up, when you open up your eyes, before you get off the bed, say good morning to Jesus. And because if you come out of your bedroom, there's another family member, don't you say good morning? Yeah. So why don't we start first with saying good morning to Jesus? So
exactly.
After this show, I have to make a promise that I'm going forward every morning. Just do that, Janet. Try that. But then I always think about within our own families, you know. I went away from the faith like Teresa for so many years, and then you wondered, like, what could have other members of my family have done to stop me from leaving, stop me from going? Because maybe we're not doing enough evangelization among our own. You know, just recently I was at a neighbor's First Communion, and the Mass was beautiful. And one of the things the pastor said to the families and the children was, today was their First Communion, it was a Saturday. Now tomorrow should be their second. Sadly, I knew a couple of people, they had big communion parties, and that next day,
They weren't at Mass.
They weren't at Mass. And so when you think, how do you become a 24/7 Catholic? Well, a moment like that, your little child with all this beautiful outfit and everything, the fuss you went over, received Jesus for the very first time. Well, why wasn't there a longing to bring that child back the next day? And see, these are the opportunities that the other family members have to speak up in kindness to say, oh, we're going to Mass tomorrow, aren't we? You know,
Well, that'd be beautiful. Now you can too receive Jesus. Remember the party and the beautiful Mass. Now this is something you can do. We are, I can't believe it, we're running out of time, only a few minutes left. There's a great quote from John Paul II that I want to share with our viewers. It's really a great quote. Janet, you want to read that?
Sure I will. Okay, sometime even Catholics have lost or never had the chance to experience Christ personally. Not Christ as a mere paradigm or value, but as the living Lord, the way and the truth and the life. John Paul II in L'Observatore Romano, which is the English version of the Vatican newspaper, did this quote in March of 1993. And yet, that quote is so true today.
Right. And I love the scripture verse from 2 Corinthians. Elena, you want to share that with our viewers?
And that says, examine yourselves to see whether you are living in faith. Test yourselves. Do you not realize that Jesus Christ is in you? Unless, of course, you fail the test.
Yeah. And I loved your quote, you can't love what you don't live out. You can't live out what you don't love. We have to allow ourselves to fall in love with Christ. And it's pretty easy, because once you just open, and to know Him is to love Him.
And I like this quote here, though, from Mother Angelica. You may be the only Jesus they get to know.
Yeah.
That's right.
Perfect, right?
Absolutely
Give
true,
out
Mother.
a smile every day. It's
That's
free.
right.
It's free to give out, and it can make a world of difference.
We have about 3 minutes left, so I really want to go over some of these resources. And again, we will have all of these quotes and the link to Unleash the Gospel on our website at thecatholicviewforwomen.com. Janet, you're going to talk about the resources which are coming up.
Absolutely. Here's homework time. Well, first, we have, of course, Teresa's book, which is available at the EWTN Religious Catalog Beyond Sunday. But what's even nicer for this book, and as a teacher, highly recommend, there's a study guide, really to go deeper. That's the whole point.
And there's also a video series that you get by buying the book and the study guide together. They will give you access, the publisher will give you access to that. And it's an 8-week course. You can do it in your home, you can do it as a group study, you could do it faith formation, adult faith formation. It's great for RCIA. And it doesn't dumb down the faith, but it's also not over the top where TMI, too much information. It's very doable.
Okay, number 2 on our homework list is try attending adoration or daily Mass at least 1 day a week. Because very often, you know, your schedule's so hectic, but let's just try it once a week, all right? And number 3, every day, smile at a stranger. You know, like we said, Mother Angelica said, you made the only Jesus they get to know. And that's really very important. You'll be surprised. You start smiling at strangers and they smile back, and you're really helping pick up their day. Of course, number 4, go to thecatholicviewforwomen.com for more information. You can sign up for our e-letter, and of course, to like us on Facebook. And finally, of course, we have our beautiful symbol here on the set, our kitchen Madonna, available at the EWTN Religious Catalog. I know we all have them in our kitchens, ladies. And of course, she has beautiful symbolism. She has the broom, which reminds us, keeps the house clean, and we keep our souls clean, right, by going to confession. And of course, the kettle nourishes us in both body and soul. And of course, the keys, keeping the home safe, but also she'll lead us to Jesus and open up the keys.
And having those
to the
religious
kingdom.
articles in the home is another way to become a 24/7 Catholic, because you're surrounding yourself with reminders of the church.
And that was what Mother Angelica always said, to have the holy reminders around your home.
All those
Well, what a
beautiful
great discussion. We'll talk more about specific ways to go beyond Sunday on our next edition of The Catholic View for Women, season number 9, and we're so glad you're tuned in. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on The Catholic View. Stay tuned.